Garry Winogrand was born on January 14, 1928, in the Bronx, New York, United States. He was an American street photographer known for his spontaneous images of people in public engaged in everyday life, particularly of New Yorkers during the 1960s. His unusual camera angles, uncanny sense of timing, and ability to capture bizarre and sometimes implausible configurations of people, places, and things made him one of the most influential photographers of his generation. He was extremely prolific, and though he died young, Winogrand created a vast corpus of work that documented society across the United States over the course of 3 decades. Supported by the GI Bill after spending 2 years in the Army, Winogrand attended City College of New York from 1947 to 1948, and then Columbia University, where he studied painting from 1948 to 1951. He was introduced to photography by the school newspaper's photographer, George Simbel, who showed him the 24-hour darkroom. They formed the Midnight to Dawn Club, its name reflecting their all-night work in the darkroom. Winogrand, along with Simbel, also studied photography with Alexei Brodovich in 1949 on a scholarship at the New School for Social Research, now the New School. Brodovich encouraged his students to rely on instinct, rather than science and methodical technique when photographing, advice that had a significant impact on Winogrand's approach to his craft. Along with other photographers of his generation, such as Lee Friedlander, Joel Meyerowitz, and Diane Arbus, Winogrand worked tirelessly to capture the theater of the street. Early in his career, Winogrand worked as a photojournalist for Pigs Incorporated, a photo bureau that provided images to news and feature magazines. Starting in 1954, under the mentorship of agent Henrietta Brackman, Winogrand sold commercial photographs to magazines such as Sports Illustrated, Collier's, Redbook, Life, and Look, popular publications then in their heyday. In 1955, Winogrand's work was included in the seminal exhibition The Family of Man, curated by photographer Edward Steichen at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. By the end of the 1950s, with television increasingly displacing magazines and photojournalists, Winogrand turned to making more personal work. Winogrand's aesthetic vision began to emerge in 1960, when he took to the streets of New York City with his Leica camera and his bravado, and began using a wide-angle lens to create lyrical photographs of the human condition. Taking cues from documentary photographers, Walker Evans and Robert Frank, the latter of whom was getting attention for his grainy candid photos, Winogrand taught himself how to tilt the camera with the wide-angle lens, in such a way that allowed him to include elements that, given his close vantage point, would have otherwise been cut off by the frame. This practice also resulted in unusual compositions with a certain amount of distortion. Shooting many frames in quick succession, Winogrand did not strive for the classical composition of traditional photography. The tilted frame technique, as opposed to placing the horizon line parallel to the frame, was Winogrand's successful experiment and subsequently became common practice among street photographers. His style quickly acquired the name snapshot aesthetic, a term Winogrand rejected because it implied that his approach was casual and without focus. His photographs of people, primarily women, in public places and on the street, especially Fifth Avenue in New York City, were tinged with humor and satire. That work culminated in the 1975 book, Women Are Beautiful, which seemed misogynistic to many readers. Winogrand was included with Ken Heyman, George Krauss, Jerome Liebling, and Minor White, in the 1963 MoMA exhibition, Five Unrelated Photographers. The following year he was granted a Guggenheim Fellowship, his first of 3, which allowed him to pursue his work without financial concern. He showed his photographs in a 1967 group exhibition at MoMA, titled New Documents. The show included Arbus and Friedlander, photographers with whom he has been associated ever since. That, and all but one of his other exhibitions at MoMA, was curated by John Sarkowski, director of the MoMA's photography department, and Winogrand's greatest champion. In addition to people, Winogrand photographed animals in Central Park Zoo, and Coney Island's New York Aquarium. He published some of those images in the book The Animals in 1969, which was a commercial failure, and exhibited them at MoMA in 1970. In 1971, Winogrand began teaching, first at the Illinois Institute of Technology's Institute of Design through 1972, and then at the University of Texas at Austin from 1973 to 1978, before moving to Los Angeles. Capturing such Los Angeles sites as Hollywood Boulevard, Venice Beach, the Los Angeles International Airport, and the Ivar Theater, a strip club, began to command his attention. From this period until his death, he photographed obsessively and did not edit even a fraction of the thousands of rolls of film that he shot. Winogrand produced a few discrete series in the 1970s, one of which was Public Relations. For that series, which Winogrand started shooting in 1969, he photographed high-profile events, such as protests, press conferences, sports games, campaign rallies, and museum openings in order to capture what he called the effect of the media on events. In other words, the way people look and how they behave when they are participating in an event that will be reported in the media. The series became a book and an exhibition at MoMA, guest curated by fellow photographer and friend Todd Papageorge in 1977. Winogrand's other big project of the 1970s was the cleverly titled Stock Photographs, documenting the Fort Worth Fat Stock Show, an annual livestock exposition and rodeo, which became Winogrand's final photo book, published in 1980. Winogrand died suddenly at age 56, 6 weeks after he was diagnosed with cancer. He left a body of work that was in complete disarray, with about 35,000 prints, 6,600 rolls of film, 2,500 rolls of exposed but undeveloped film and 4,100 processed but not reviewed, 45,000 color transparencies, and about 22,000 contact sheets, nearly 800,000 images. Winogrand's frenetic style captured the chaos of life with immediacy and energy and left an indelible mark on 20th-century photography. His archive, most of which is held at the Center for Creative Photography at the University of Arizona, continued to yield new unprinted work for decades after his death. The first major retrospective of Winogrand's work in 25 years, held at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art in 2013, exhibited nearly 100 photos that the photographer himself had never seen. In 2019, the Brooklyn Museum in New York organized the first exhibition dedicated to his color work called Garry Winogrand, Color. The exhibition consisted of an immersive installation of large-scale projections comprising over 400 rarely or never-before-seen color photographs that capture the social and physical landscape of New York City and the United States. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. This way, you'll always stay up to date with all the videos I produce here. Until the next one. See you later.